from here, let's just take a few breaths together. So exhale it all out and take a deep breath in. And let it go. Another deep breath in and let it go. One more deep breath. Breathe in and let it go. And so good morning again, beloved community. If you don't know me, I'm Reverend Elisha Christopher. I'm the spiritual director of the Center for Spiritual Living here in Santa Cruz. I do use they and them pronouns. My ancestors come from all over the world, some indigenous to this land we call our nation. But those who immigrated to this country, we do know came here from Ireland, Scotland, Austria, and Holland. And it's good to be back. I wasn't here with you last week because last Saturday my family was celebrating the life of my grandfather who passed just a couple months ago. And, you know, powerful transition. My grandfather was the last living member of his generation on either side of our family. And so it just really felt like a powerful transition. And then thank you very much. And then I had the powerful experience on Sunday. My sister and I got to go to the Hollywood Bowl where I found Jesus. My sister and I went and saw the performance of Jesus Christ Superstar with Cynthia Erivo playing Jesus. And if you don't know who Cynthia Erivo is, she played Elphaba in Wicked. And I tell you, my friends, something transcendent happened in that theater last weekend. And one of the pieces of it for me was, as a queer person who grew up in a Christian community, who in a way was kind of extracized from my community as I came out, and had been on my spiritual search led me out of the church I started in and led me to Science of Mind, led me to this philosophy that we teach here in this place. But to come around again and have a version of Jesus, the version of this archetype, a version of this love that was, in a sense for me, Cynthia Erivo gave us a Jesus for the other. Right? Because in all the intersections of her being as a female-bodied person, as a non-binary person, as a black person, as all the various things that she represents, that what I saw was a Jesus that transcended the story. Right? And I realized that there was something that was powerful that was happening for me that I couldn't quite name, and I've been realizing that the name, the face of this person, the stories, the mythologies that surround Jesus have been weaponized in our time. Right? And there's so much hatred, there's so much othering that happens in the name of God. And then to be given such a powerful reflection of the face of Jesus in a way that I personally had never seen before. That spoke to my soul in a way that said, wait a minute, remember that this story, this person, this idea is not about one person who came here 2,000 years ago. This is the truth of who each one of us is. That each one of us are the sons and daughters of God, that each one of us are the manifestations of divinity, that each one of us were sent here by the one chosen to live here in this world on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose, right now. Right? I grew up with this verse in church. It's burned into my mind. For God so loved the world that he... there it goes. It's been a while. Only begotten son who would be crucified to save the world, right? Something like that. Yeah. You were the one who was sent. For God so loved the world that it sent you. That it sent me. That it sent each one of us to be here in this very moment because the presence of God is needed in the world right now. The presence of love, the presence of compassion, the presence of healing, the presence of oneness, the presence of interconnection, the presence that looks out of our eyes and sees divinity shining back at us. That is the presence, that is the power, that is the life that the world needs right now. And so the thing that awakened for me in this last week is to remember that each one of us has been sent here to be here right now. Right now. And to remember that our purpose is to shine the light into the darkness, is to illuminate the truth when the truth cannot be found. That each one of us is the way, the truth, and the light. And so, what if we truly took that invitation into our living practice, into the everyday activity of our lives? What does it look like for each one of us to walk through the world, not as if I am divinity, ooh, I am the divine sent here to save the world? No. What if we're looking for that presence in everyone else? It's one thing to say, I am divinity. It's a whole nother thing to look at you and see it. Especially in those moments where we rub up against each other, where we bump up against each other, where it's easy, or it's difficult, where our feelings get hurt, where something happens. And clearly I'm right, clearly I'm divine. Right? But then we have to extend that out. And again, I say this a lot, but we come into spiritual community, we come into these places where we get inspired and reminded, and the music lifts us up, and the meditation reminds us of that truth. And then it's kind of easy to do that with each other, to be in the oneness, to see the love, to forgive each other when we have our moments. But the community is where we practice. Because there's a whole lot happening in spaces that don't feel like this one, where we then have the opportunity again to look for divinity. And it's easy when it's easy. It's easy when that other person is looking back at us like, namaste, I see the God in you. That's easy, kind of, most of the time. But that's why we have to practice. That's why we have to cultivate that something deeper, because we're in this moment where there are many faces, many voices, many presences in the world that are shining something back at us that looks absolutely unlike divinity, that looks absolutely unlike our humanity, that looks absolutely unlike compassion. And so how do I show up as the presence of love in the face of hate? How do I show up as the presence of justice in the face of oppression? How do I show up as the face of joy in moments of despair? I don't know. But that's the infinite question, right? And it has to come from something deeper. And I keep finding myself more and more and more as the it keeps hitting the fan, and it is everywhere, to come back to center and find the way back for yourself. There is so much to do. There is so much that needs our attention. And we have to pay attention to it. We have to be looking. We have to know where our work and where our love and where our words are needed, where our action is needed. And at the same time, we also need to be plugging ourselves into something else that reminds us of a higher truth that's greater than all the facts, that's greater than all the circumstances, that's greater than all the stuff that's happening out there. How many of you have a phone? Most of us, I imagine. How's your relationship with charging your phone? Right? I rarely let my phone die. That little light up in the top corner starts to tell me that the battery is going down. I have a little percent on, so it starts to drop, right? And rarely do many of us, I imagine, let our phones go all the way dead. It's like, oh, gotta plug it in. Got to keep the energy, got to keep it alive. Do you do this? Are you that as diligent about keeping your phone charged as you are about your spiritual connection? Do you have the percentage little battery light on in your awareness that says, I've lost my connection? I'm running out of compassion. Where's my source of love? And if it starts to get low, do you do something about it immediately? Or maybe you build a habit where you plug your phone in overnight while you're asleep. So maybe you build a habit where you sit in meditation every morning. Or you build a relationship with a prayer partner or someone who's going to be in that reminding of you that you come back to day after day or week after week to be reminded of your truth or engage in spiritual study or work with a practitioner or whatever it is that you're doing. But remember that in order for us to have the energy that we need, in order for us to have the love, the compassion, the awareness, the ability to show up, we have got to be sourced and resourced and plugged in to the infinite source that gives to all. And it's available to us, but we have to plug into it. I think it's really easy for us to forget how intense the world is that we're living in, how chaotic the energy is. I'll tell you a funny story about me not being quite aware of the energy. So after Jason and I got married in June, we went and spent 2 days on an island up in the Puget Sound where some friends of us have some property, and there's about 20 people on the entirety of the island. And we were there for 2.5 days. We got real grounded and real calm, and it was very quiet, and it was just the two of us for days. From there, we went to Seattle. And unbeknownst to us, as we arrived into Seattle, some great big ball game was just getting out. And we were entering the city as about, 10, 20,000 people were just getting out of a stadium, deciding to go to all the different places and do all the things. We were so grounded and calm and peaceful. And then something happened. I don't know who said what, but one of us said something, and the other one heard the other thing. And the next thing we know, we're stomping down the street with our luggage, trying to find our hotel, not talking to each other. And it kind of landed on us later that we just walked in to this wall of energy. The consciousness, whether it was celebrating, whether it was this or that, but we went from being just in absolute stillness to then being literally in the middle of a stadium unleashing into Seattle, downtown. And it was that little moment that we talked about it later, but for me, was this realization of how much I need to pay attention to my energy. About how easy it is to get moved off of our center when we're not paying attention. And when we're unaware of the energy that we're stepping into, it can take us over, no matter how grounded we might be. So to recognize that we have to find a balance. We have to find a way to be grounded and in our spiritual practice and aware of ourselves and getting charged up and plugged into our spiritual source and activating all that love and compassion that we need to. But we also need to figure out, each one of us, how to hold that energy in our own container and not let the chaos of the world in. Because it's truly overwhelming. And it was like getting whacked by a great big field of energy, and I didn't know what hit me, and it was completely disorienting. And then to realize that when we notice that happens, we've got to plug back in. We have to slow down. We can't just keep going. We have to stop and come back to ourselves yet again. And the thing about spiritual practice, the thing about getting centered, the thing about cultivating this awareness is, unfortunately, we have to do it again and again and again and again. That the whole practice is about coming back to center. It's about noticing when we've gone off so that we can come back. Right? I've shared a meditation practice with this group multiple times over the years, but this idea that one of my teachers told me about, when you're meditating, count your breaths backwards from 100. 100, breathe in, let go. 99, breathe in, let go. Da, 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 da. Anytime you lose what number you're on, or forget that you're meditating, or forget that you're breathing, you go back to 100 and start the practice over again. And my teacher's story was that in a Zen monastery in 13 years, he thinks he got to 0 one time. So don't worry about trying to get to 0. That's not the point. The whole point of our spiritual practice is to have something that we do that brings us back to start, back to center, every single time we forget, every time we get off the track, every time our energy gets moved out of alignment, we find a way to bring ourselves back. And I think the power about our teaching of science of mind is we have these tools. Some of the folks are in our spiritual mind treatment class as part of our practitioner training we're doing right now, where we learn the 5 steps of spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. And the first step, every single time, go back to oneness. Remember that there is only one life, one infinite presence, that God is all that there is, that there is nothing outside of that. That's the starting point every time. And so every time we forget, every time we think that there is an other out there, every time we find hate or oppression or injustice in the world, every time we see a perpetrator, every single time we see someone doing harm, every time we want to point our finger at someone, we have to stop and go back and say, wait a minute, if God is all there is, if this person is divinity, if there is something at work here that I cannot see, how do I proceed from there? Rather than just continuously going forward without actually paying attention. Because so much of our spiritual practice is just about paying attention. Pay attention to what you're thinking. Pay attention to what you're observing. Pay attention to what you're feeling. That paying attention is how you plug in your phone. That's how you plug yourself in. It's keeping a consistent conscious awareness on where your mind is going. And there are so many things available to take our attention away. The question, the practice, the invitation is to maintain that attention, to maintain that awareness on where you want it to be. And in a world full of distractions, in a world full of pain, in a world full of so much confusion, we have to remember that our source presence, our infinite guidance, and the thing that will recharge us every single time is that deep, powerful presence that lives within us. So let's take a deep breath in. And let's take a few moments together to connect with that. So take another deep breath. And if it's comfortable for you, close your eyes. As I bring us back to the beginning, as I remind us, as I invite us to remember that there is one seamless presence that is living and breathing throughout the entirety of the universe. That there is one life, and that one life is animating, living in everyone and everything. Let us remember that the infinite mind, the infinite heart, the life of the universe itself is always expanding, is always evolving. And remember that in that divine mind and in that divine heart, there is ever present and always available the energy we need, the love we need, the power we need, the insight we need, the truth we need. It all resides in that infinite presence. And so as we remember that truth, let us each then remember that if that one is all that there is, then each one of us are expressions of that infinite oneness. That each one of us are the hands and the feet and the voice of the one life. Let us remember that each one of us was indeed sent here into this world on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose, because we are the unique individualized ways that the allness of the infinite reveals the finite, the actual. And so it is through our attention, through our thoughts, through our choices, through our intention, through our participation in life, that we become the way that the universe chooses what becomes. And so let us remember today let us remember that in this very moment, the place that our attention is needed the most is on the inside. That we are the stewards and the cultivators of everything that we perceive. And that if we start to see and look for the oneness, if we start to cultivate that love and look for that divinity looking back at us and each and every person, if we are willing to expand not only to where it's easy, not only to those who we love because we love them, but what if the expansion is for us to look out into the world and see those eyes that we would claim are filled with hate and pour our love back into them? To realize that there is no other, that anyone we could point a finger at is ourself, looking right back at us, pointing back, saying, I am you, you are me. So somehow, some way, we have got to learn to awaken to the more of us, to look beyond the illusion, to look beyond the circumstances and start to see the oneness, because as we awaken to the oneness in the midst of all that is unfolding around us, we perhaps could awaken ourselves to something more. And in that awakening, we could reveal that greater truth. Because I truly believe that everything necessary for our awakening is spread out before us right now. That the conditions that are unfolding in our nation and in our world is everything necessary to wake us up, to shake us open, to remind us that love is the core of who we are. And that we are claiming that. And what I know is that when we claim something, everything unlike it rises up to test us, to challenge us, to prove what it is that we are calling forth. And so I claim that love, that compassion, that peace, and that harmony are being called forth for all of humanity. And that everything necessary is rising up so that we can see what we need to do in order to clear it up so that we can bring that love into the world. The healing time is now, and the work is ours. And so I give great thanks for this beloved community of individuals who I know in this moment are willing to say yes to that something more, to a greater way of being, to letting the light of God shine through our eyes. Because the truth is that there's only one of us here. The truth is that God is all that there is. And the truth is waiting for us to reveal it. And our opportunity is now. And so it is from this place that I invite us back to our breath. I remind each one of us that we are being breathed by life itself. And so let us surrender to that infinite presence, to that ever-present power, and let it fill us and overflow through us in everything we do. And so in this place, in this moment, I am grateful for who we are, for who we are becoming, and for everything that is calling us into the truth of who we are. And so I let it be. And so it is.